This is Jordan Edwards, and this is the Business Jiu Jitsu Podcast. All right. Good afternoon, Frank Rosenthal.
Hey, how's it going?
Very good. Pleasure to have you on. I'm sure most of you know who Frank is, but Frank's a great jiu-jitsu competitor, and it's been an honor watching your career. I'm a teammate of Matt Cully from Budokan, and watched you at Rise many times, his promotion, and really happy to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So Frank, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in Rockland County, New York, which is like a suburb of Manhattan. It's about 45 minutes north of the city. So I grew up there, and then went to college in Pennsylvania, went to East Stroudsburg University, and then moved back to the New York area, where I, kind of started taking jiu-jitsu more seriously. Ended up moving, closer to the city, lived in Queens for a little bit. And then, recently, about a year and a half ago, made the move out to Virginia, where I currently am. So yeah.
Definitely want to get to the Virginia and everything you got going on, but I just want to rewind a little bit back to your childhood a little. Did you grow up playing sports?
Yeah, I was pretty active. As a kid, I tried a little bit of everything, did the typical stuff, little league, soccer, stuff like that. When I got to about 5th or 6th grade, I had tried lacrosse, and that started to stick, and then started wrestling in 7th grade. So through middle school and high school, I would say lacrosse and wrestling were my two main areas of focus that I enjoyed. But I always enjoyed playing, any kind of sport really. But early on, it was definitely most dedicated to lacrosse and wrestling.
Yeah, I was a big lacrosse player. I played lacrosse my whole life, and 2 years in college before I retired. Retiring from lacrosse, and I was also a competitive ski racer. That's what led to jiu-jitsu. So, when I was looking for something to do, and that was a great story, because one of my best family friends, Lou Levine, dad of one of my best girlfriends, he grew up a martial artist in the New York area over here. And while he was growing up, he was training with all these guys. Who were those guys? Matt Serra, John Danaher, all those guys. And so he was in that circle, and they used to train in their basements and their garages. None of them had academies, and they would migrate into the city to Henzo's. So
yeah, it's funny. Had it been available to you back then, you might have started earlier, but it wasn't as just available as it is now.
Yeah. Well, it turns out it was available by me. I just didn't even know what it was. I saw Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on Sunrise Highway in Long Island, and it was Rodrigo Gracie, but I thought it was like capoeira. I didn't even know what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was. It wasn't until 2005 with the Ultimate Fighter show on FX that I learned what Jiu-Jitsu actually was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've come a long way in terms of the mainstream, level of it.
Yeah. So did you play lacrosse for East Stroudsburg or wrestle for them?
No, so they had a club lacrosse team. I wanted to play in college, but I wasn't quite, Division I material. I'm not, that big of a guy, and I was good in high school, but I wasn't like a, like that level of player. So I tried the club team for a little bit, and didn't really like it. So at that point, though, I had really started to get into jiu-jitsu. Actually, some of my first experiences were with Matt Serra, because oddly enough, my cousin who got me into jiu-jitsu was training under Matt and trained under Matt all the way, till brown belt. So some of my first experiences were going to Long Island and staying with my cousin, and we would train a bunch at Matt's academy. And from the time I met him, Matt was always really good to me. I was just some kid coming in and trying to get started, and Matt was always very nice to me, and we continue to, when we see each other now, he's always super supportive and has been a great just great dude, and great for jiu-jitsu on Long Island. He's really raised the level. But yeah,
he's always been a force for the sport of mixed martial arts and for jiu-jitsu, and he's got the most magnetic personality. There's a whole case study in him of just how to run a business, and the fact that you've been around him so much is probably a good thing for your new business, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. So how old were you when you started jiu-jitsu?
Oh man, I was right out of high school, so I was 17.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like young for my grade. So I actually started college and I was still 17. And at the
September, baby?
October.
Okay.
But there was no real, formal kind of classes or anything going on. So my experience was limited to visiting my cousin on Long Island. And then at school, there was like a couple other kids that were into it, but there was no instruction. There was no like anything really. So what I used to do is we would go into one of the gyms. They had these mats on the walls, but the mats were like the Velcro ones that you can like tear off the strip on the wall that would cover this rock wall. So we would tear them down and lay them on the floor and just like roll and just like try to learn on the go. Well, the college got kind of tired of us doing that. And so then they chained through like a strip, like the mats to the wall, so that you needed a key to unlock it. So we would go in and we would cut the thing off so that we could lay the mats down and train. Like that's just how badly I wanted to train, but also spoke to how limited the resources were. Like I didn't have a martial arts school nearby that I could go. So eventually an MMA gym came around later, which I ended up, teaching at. But in the beginning, it was just like any mat time I could get was good, but it wasn't easy to do.
Yeah. As you graduated, were you 100% focused on jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, I wanted to drop out of school like by sophomore year. I had come home for the summer and I'd started training at a Renzo Gracie affiliate school, and I'd gotten my blue belt. It was called Renzo Gracie Northern Valley.
Oh, sure.
And I'd gotten my blue belt, and then I was like, I love this. Like, I want to drop out of school. And I was already competing and all this. And my parents like, absolutely not, like finish college and then drop out. So yeah, I was pretty like hooked from the beginning, but I did end up finishing. And in the long run, it actually worked out better. It was the right move.
Was that around like 2016, 2017?
Yeah. So no. Oh, sorry. That was earlier. So we're talking like I got my blue belt in like 2010, maybe.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, so this is before the DDS was a thing. This is before anyone knew who John was. I knew who John was through my cousin and through Matt because he had done a seminar at their school. But jiu-jitsu was not like this thing yet, like it was.
Sure.
By the time I was towards the end of college, that's when it started like changing.
I thought you were a little bit younger, or a little bit younger than I think you are. So
yeah.
You're in your 30s now.
I'm 32.
32, yeah. I pegged you a little bit younger.
Everybody says that.
Yeah, well, that's good. It's a good thing to have that youthful look. But also, it's not only that because you were very much a part of this, DDS, this room. Every day on Instagram, all of us watching this incredible thing unfold. With Eddie Cummings and Gary Tonin and Gordon. And you were right there, in that room as one of the students constantly getting shout outs and competing on the stage at, a lot of these events and doing really well.
Yeah, it was funny. It was like when it started, you didn't know really how special it was and what it was going to become. But I do remember a specific day where, I was talking to Eric and I said, man, like, this thing is really unique, and to even be a small part of it is like a very special thing. And I remember just saying, we really have to cherish this and value it because in my experience, nothing good or bad lasts forever. And who knows, like the dynamic could change and people could come and go, and that could very much change the team dynamic. And then sure enough, not too long after that, the team dynamic did start to change. Eddie Cummings had moved on, and that was like a big deal for me, especially. I had spent a lot of time with Eddie, and he really was a big influence on me, and helped me out a great deal. So when he left, it was kind of like, I was like, oh man, like this thing isn't going to last forever. We have to like really squeeze everything we can out of this experience because whether it's a band, whether it's a team, whether it's whatever, people go their separate ways. And I just feel really grateful that I feel like I took every ounce of knowledge that I could and appreciated it while I had it, you know?
Yeah, I absolutely feel what you're saying. I lived in New York City for 12 years before I recently moved out to Long Island after COVID. And every day I would travel from Manhattan to Long Island, where my office was.
Mm-hmm.
And my dojo under Sensei Nardu, which were a Renzo Gracie affiliate in Limbrook at the time, now Valley Stream, I would feel like so close to the source of what was going on. And Sensei's going in and he's bringing back the technique. And every once in a while, I would get a chance to go train with John and go to the basement. But I always felt like it's there. I could always go there. And then COVID hit, and then that's it. I lost my chance. You know, I can't do that anymore. I can't go. There's still great jiu-jitsu there, by the way. And I've trained with Mike Giarmello, who's fantastic. And there's still incredible jiu-jitsu all over the place. But to have had that there, I also feel grateful just for those few times. And
yeah, you could get on the LIR and go into the city and then, you know, be back home.
Yeah. And I had on 2 occasions, I got to train with Eddie Cummings, actually out at Hampton's Jiu-Jitsu, not in the city at those times, but just feeling that kind of technique and pressure was something of which I didn't even, it was almost as if we were doing 2 different sports.
Yeah.
You know, I've been training jiu-jitsu now. At that time, it was probably about 10 years. I'm 14 years in. And I remember the feeling of having him pass my guard and using parts of his body that I didn't even know you were supposed to use in jiu-jitsu. I felt completely immobilized.
Yeah. Yeah. It's there's like a game behind the game. And sometimes you don't know that it exists until you find out. And you're like, oh man, like how many layers back does this go?
Yeah.
I'm still, the cool thing about jiu-jitsu is that'll never stop. Like I still feel like that, you know, and I've been doing this for, you know, almost 15 years now. And even still, I'm like, oh man, like this thing it just never ends.
Yeah. Are you still just as jacked up by it now today as you were then?
Oh, I would say even more now. Like you go through periods, you know, I think in the beginning, it's so easy to get excited because you're starting from nothing. And so anything is exciting. And then it gets harder and harder, I think, to find the same level of like excitement in the sport because now you've experienced so much of it. And so that's why it's a tricky thing. It takes better training partners and better coaching and better thinking on your part in order to like find that same level of interest. But luckily I've been so fortunate where like, man, the majority of my jiu-jitsu experience has been with, you know, John and the DDS and now at 50-50 with Ryan Hall. So I'm like, that's so uncommon. Like I'm so lucky. And I was in both situations able to never get complacent because there's just so much to learn from who I'm working with and the guys around me that I feel very fortunate. But yeah, it's an interesting thing.
It's very interesting. And I'm so happy to hear your perspective on it because it's refreshing and it's also, and I feel the same exact way about, you know, people in my life that have been so important in my development, both in business and in jiu-jitsu. Talk to me a little bit about your competition career and you as a competitor. You know, were you a very competitive person growing up? Is competition something that you felt a severe call to, like you wanted to be one of the best in the world?
Yeah, I always loved competing from a young age, but to be honest, just wasn't that great at it. I think I worked hard in the sports I was involved in, but performance anxiety was always a thing. It always felt like I was the kid on the team that never performed in competition when it counted the way that I did on the practice field. And that when my athletic career ended in high school as, you know, a lacrosse player and as a wrestler, I looked at jiu-jitsu as like hey, like this is a second kind of shot to do something that you really love and also kind of prove to yourself that you don't have to be that guy that was, left all his good stuff in the practice room. You can go out and you can do these things. And to a degree, I don't know that I've realized my full potential yet. I think I still have a long way to go, which is a good thing. But I've definitely made, growth in terms of performing on the stage when it counts. And, there's definitely some things I'm proud of. I'm not complacent by any means, but, I've definitely, I've taken a step in the right direction in closing the gap between what I'm capable of in the room and what comes out on the stage. So I'll continue to do that, going forward. But I think it's a process that you never fully master. It's something that you're always kind of working on.
Yeah, for sure. Do you see yourself continuing your competition career at the highest levels? Are you going to go for ADCC again, trials?
Yeah, I will absolutely continue to pursue the tournaments that are meaningful to me. I would say at this point, what is meaningful to me might look a little different than 3 years ago or 2 years ago or 5 years ago. But I am by no means walking away from competition. In fact, like I said before, I feel more motivated and interested in jiu-jitsu than ever before. I think my jiu-jitsu, especially in the last year, has come a long way. And so I think I have a lot more to show, for myself on the competition mats. Obviously, the rest of your life catches up with you a little bit as you get a little older. So, yeah, I'm not going to be out there every weekend like I was, a few years back, but I will definitely be out there and look forward to competing at the big events like, the ADCC trials for sure. I have a couple super fights lined up that are pretty high level matches. So, continuing to get out there and do the stuff that I feel is going to help my development. But my competitive flame is very much still there. In fact, I would say it might even be stronger now.
Oh, good. I'm really happy to hear that because I've always enjoyed watching you compete. I love when I see your name on the marquee or on the paper that you're going to be in the event. I was always so grateful when you did the Rise promotions. I was sponsored many of the Rise events through my company, Mixology Clothing Company, and Matt Cully, who's been an incredible friend and mentor for me and senior student for me. Absolutely making sure that I know that I'm humble and he could just absolutely beat the living crap out of me whenever he wants. You need those people in your life.
Yeah.
And so I love to hear that you're still going to go out there and compete because you're starting a business. So you've moved down to Virginia.
Yeah.
What brought you down to Virginia?
So I had actually, it's a funny story. I did the Kasai tournament in 2018. It was my first kind of big tournament. I just got my black belt. And after the tournament, we go to this bar in the city, not far from the venue. And I'm at the bar, and who do I see? I see Bruno Furzato, who was in my division, who I didn't get to wrestle that night. Unfortunately, he got hurt. And I see Ryan Hall, and I'm like, holy shit, it's Ryan Hall.
Yeah.
And Ryan and I start talking, and he's like, hey, man, great job tonight. He said, if you ever want to come down to Virginia and get some training, and, we'd love to have you. And I'm like, that'd be amazing. So Ryan's student at the time is a buddy of mine. His name's Adam Yoon, currently top 10 grappler in the world as well. So Ryan and Adam and I start training, and we just kind of had a very seamless relationship where we meshed together very well. We trained together well. We got along off the mats very well. So it just kind of continued for the next 4 years, and I would make trips pretty regularly to Virginia to train with these guys. And then when the DDS broke up, I remember I was in Puerto Rico for a little bit, went to Europe to do a seminar tour, and I'm talking to Craig, and Craig's like, hey, man, I think by the time you get back, this thing's going to be done. This thing's going to be split. So I kind of knew that was happening. And Ryan was like, listen, I've been saying it for years. You're always welcome down here in Virginia. You have a place, to teach at 50/50, and we'll help however we can. And man, he might not know it, but he I think saved my career because not to say that I wouldn't have been fine. You know, I could have stayed in New York and maybe opened a gym, but it would have been difficult to take my jiu-jitsu to the next level and continue competing without some kind of guidance. And Texas just didn't really seem like it was going to fit for what I wanted to do. And so what ended up being a really sad thing for me in the team breaking up ended up in this, like, the silver lining being this amazing thing where I got to learn now from another great team and another great mind in jiu-jitsu, and ended up falling in love with everything about this place. And now, you know, I'm opening a business here. And so it's fun. It's just weird how things work out, but
it's very weird. You turn left one day and you just don't know what's going to happen in your life. And it's these interactions with people. They say one thing and it alters the course of your life. If you're brave enough to go for it, you know.
Yeah.
Think about how many times people in your life offer you to come do something. You know, hey, why don't you come to my house this weekend? Or, hey, you want to go skiing? Or let's play golf. And you're just like, most people, what do? They're like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
They never.
Like, oh, we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll say my friend Adam, Ben Yoon was a huge help in helping me make the leap, because I think he understood the best out of anyone where, like, the challenges. And he's like, listen, Frank, I understand you're hesitant. Like, you've been in New York your whole life. You love New York, but you can, and it's a crazy idea to, like, move to Virginia. Like, but Adam had done it, you know, like, Adam and I lived in the same neighborhood in Astoria. Like, he trained at Marcelo's. He trained 5 blocks away from where I trained at Renzo's. Yeah. And so he's like, I know what you're feeling, but if you make the leap, like, it can be really good. And so that was a big help in, like, kind of seeing, like, somebody had taken this path before and it worked out really well for him. So that was a little bit more. I wasn't exactly like a guinea pig.
Yeah. Let me see where the academy is. So it's 50-50. Is it like right outside DC, kind of Virginia?
Yeah. So we're like 10-15 minutes outside of DC in Falls Church. And so we get actually a lot of our students, you know, some of them live in DC, Arlington, Falls Church, obviously the surrounding areas. So it's cool. It's, in a weird way, it kind of reminds me of Renzo's, because it's so close to a central hub, you know, which is DC. So when people are in town for work or visiting, we always have a lot of visitors coming in, which reminds me of Renzo's. Yeah. And that's always nice. You know, it's cool that on their work trip, people think to, you know, stop by to take a jiu-jitsu class. And obviously, you know, it's a very well-known academy, and sure. And yeah,
it's funny when you say Virginia, especially people from around the country, sometimes you feel like that might be somewhere all the way out here. Right. No, it's right on the banks. I mean, you're basically, it's Washington, D.C., you know, suburb. So you're in a very densely populated area, and a lot of people come by here. When I had Ricardo Almeida on the podcast, he told me the reason he picked the location of his gym in New Jersey was it was halfway in between Philadelphia and New York City. Yeah. He's like, that's where he set up shop. It was a strategic thing. And I think there's a lot of good strategy in having an academy right here. Yeah.
And Ricardo is so amazing. Like, wherever he opened up, he was going to do well, but he's smart too. So that's awesome.
Yeah. My buddy, I'm looking at this map right here. I've got it pulled up for those of you who are watching or listening. But my buddy, when he fled COVID from New York City, he bought a house right here in this Easton St. Michael's area. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you ever spent any time over here, but it is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful place. A little corner of the world.
Yeah, I haven't been yet, but I should check that out. It doesn't look too far.
Yeah. Very cool. So, so what's, so you're starting your own academy. What's the genesis of this?
Yeah. So, you know, when I moved here, I told Ryan, I was like, listen, you know, I'm closer to opening my own academy than not. And I said, I don't know where that's going to be. It might be back home in New York. I'm like, so I'll kind of take it the first year here and see how it goes. And like I said, I just fell so in love with Virginia and the training here and the people here that I had a conversation with Ryan. I said, listen, man, I'd like to stick around because I think I could do well in New York, but it would be difficult to continue to get guidance and get good training in the spot that I want to open, because I would have opened back in Rockland where I'm from. And the closest training would have been like, my good friends, Jason Rao, John Calistine, Nick Ronan, which are amazing. They're amazing, jiu-jitsu practitioners themselves, but they're far. They're like an hour and a half away. Yeah. So I said to myself, realistically, if I'm running a business and doing all that, am I going to be able to drive an hour and a half to go train? I'm like, I've been doing that like the last little while. Like I did that to get to the city. I don't want to do that anymore. Yeah. And so I said, Ryan, like with your blessing, I'd really like to open up in Virginia so that I can continue to train with you and Adam and all the students at 50/50 to keep my game sharp, because martial arts is obviously really important to me. And Ryan and his wife, Jen, and everybody have been nothing but supportive. They've been just so helpful in everything to do with the gym. And so we ended up, my school will actually be a 50/50 affiliate. And it's been awesome to see the team grow and continue to expand throughout Northern Virginia. We have Adam Yoon in Springfield, who's got Black Hat Jiu-Jitsu. We have Seth Smith, down in Richmond, who's got Upstream BJJ. And now we'll have, myself in Herndon with Phantom Jiu Jitsu. And so the team just continues to grow, which is pretty cool to be a part of.
Yeah, fantastic. I see you're right over here on 267, right near Dulles Airport. So really well located for visitors and people who are coming to DC, people who are coming to Virginia. Stop by, do a little jiu-jitsu on the way to the airport. That's really great. And I see you're near a Trader Joe's and a Home Depot. So it seems like you've picked a pretty damn good location if I'm putting my business hat on.
Yeah, thank you. It was actually the first one I looked at. I just I was looking on the internet for a while, and I saw this place, and this is the first place I actually physically went and visited. And I was like, man, like obviously, there's negotiations that have to happen and paperwork and this and that. But I said to myself, if this ends up working out, I think this could be really cool. So luckily it did. And now we're about 4 weeks away from opening. So
that's great.
It hasn't quite hit me yet, but it's starting to feel more real by the minute.
Yeah. Well, if I could be of service to you in any way, I've been in the commercial real estate business since I was 18 years old. I'm 37 today. I'm almost 38. And I have a lot of knowledge in running and opening businesses, especially with real estate build out. So you always feel like you can run it by me if you have questions about leases. I'm writing a book, Business Jiu-Jitsu.
Oh, wow.
It's that's the purpose why I started this podcast. But my first book was called This Is It. And I talk a lot about businesses starting, writing your first lease, taking that risk, building out space for the first time. And I've talked about it a lot on this podcast, and I made myself available for free to anybody listening. And I've had dozens and dozens of young people reach out to me starting businesses. And there's like, hey, please take a look at this lease before I sign it. And so it sounds like you've already done that. But for you or anybody listening, I'm happy to be helpful. Just shoot me a message on Instagram. Happy to set up a couple minutes to talk.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So yeah, listen, anytime. A few things off of what you just talked about. First of all, as I was looking on Google Maps, for those of you listening, I pulled up Frank's school. I see that there's a couple golf courses in the area.
There are.
Now, I'm not some major golfer. I've played golf my whole life, but I'm not like super into it. I'm way more into jiu-jitsu. On Saturday and Sunday mornings in the summer, I'm going to train at Hampton's Jiu-Jitsu out in the Hamptons, or by the way, with Rich Byrne, the CEO of Kasai. You mentioned Kasai before. Shout out Rich.
Rich is the best.
I love Rich. And Greg Melita and Randy Neves and Kristen and all the crew at Northwork Grappling. So shout out to them. But I saw you put up a post. You've been playing golf recently.
Yeah, I grew up kind of like playing here and there, and I always liked it, but like it's hard to get good if you play twice a season. And then the last couple years, I've been doing it more consistently. And with as chaotic as jiu-jitsu can be, golf kind of balances me out and has been a really fun way to kind of decompress and hit the reset button. But at the same time, because I'm like hyper competitive and I take everything way too seriously, I can't just do things like for fun, like a normal person. I have to like obsess over it. So when I'm not doing jiu-jitsu, I'm like obsessing over golf, and I'm still not great, but the effort is definitely there. And yeah, I just I find it actually matches up very well with the ideas that would make anybody successful in an athletic activity. But it's unforgiving. It's a challenging game, but it's just something I've really like grown to enjoy.
Yeah. The reason why I reached out to you when you put that up was because I constantly am finding golf metaphors inside of jiu-jitsu and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
And I always talked about, I was like, hey, do you play golf? They're like, no, like nobody that I do jiu-jitsu with plays golf. And so it's so rare to find somebody, but there's interesting aspects of golf and jiu-jitsu that I think, like, I'm going to give you an example. I'll see if you have any understanding of this, but like, sometimes when I'm passing, right, and I'm working on like a new passing technique, or I'm working on an angle, if I do it too loose, I'm getting swept.
Mm-hmm.
And if I do it too hard, sometimes you can drive right past the house, like shank or hit it left or right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh my God, this is like golf. Like I'm doing it too loosey-goosey. And so sometimes what do you do in golf? Like you overcorrect, you rip the hell out of the club, and then you try to hit it as hard as you can.
Right.
And like, I find that metaphor so often in jiu-jitsu where it's like, I'm either too relaxed and loose, or I want to kill something.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree 100%. I've tried to use golf metaphors with my students, but only like one other student in the class plays. So I end up probably sounding like an idiot, more so than usual. But yeah, I think what both come down to, and my jiu-jitsu has, I think, helped me understand what I'm trying to do in golf probably quicker than if I didn't have this experience. I think what it comes down to is like, first, just knowing like, what is it that we're after? Like, what is my general goal here? And what are going to be the few things that help me, accomplish that goal? So like when we talk about guard passing, like before we get into the weeds of like this grip or this pass or this submission, as like we teach our students, like you got to be in good, you just have to be in base. Like if you're falling over as you're trying to do these movements, it won't matter what move you're trying to do, it's going to unravel. So like when I'm playing golf, like these simple cues of just the alignment of my feet, my breathing, and just being connected through the floor is going to be the prerequisite before any technical adjustment I make with my swing or my club path or what I'm trying to do in terms of the shot that I hit. And so kind of taking it down to the bare bones of like, what is it that is going to allow me to make those corrections has been really helpful. And then you tend to see that the problems often stem from a flaw in these really simple ideas. Think about it. Like that's why hitting at the range is so much easier than hitting on the course. Why? Well, you're standing on perfectly level ground. The ball is on turf that your club tends to slide on, whereas in real grass and dirt, it'll catch. So if you make a mistake, it's much more forgiving. You don't have to stand awkwardly. So you're getting to start with like the most ideal starting position. So that's like on top in jiu-jitsu. If you promise not to try to off balance me or submit me, like, of course, I'm going to feel a lot better. So just like basic ideas of like having my feet and my body in good alignment, having good base, being connected with the floor, and that allowing me to relax enough to make the adjustments I need to in jiu-jitsu or golf has been a huge help. Like just learning how to actually swing in a way where my body's in alignment lets me crack the ball so much more with so much better contact than if you're picking up too early, you're doing all these things. And so if there's one thing I've learned, like from jiu-jitsu, better to make very simple adjustments than a million small adjustments. And that'll actually start to help you distill what the real problem is. Because if you change 10 things at once, you don't know which thing is actually making the difference. Mm-hmm. So like the best advice I've gotten in jiu-jitsu and the best advice I've gotten on the golf course is like, just change one thing at a time and see if that corrects the problem, because otherwise you're it's not great science if you're changing too many variables at once.
It feels so good to be understood. Like,
Yeah.
thank you so much for saying all that. Like, it's so clear that you understand my exact question and something that I've been so fascinated by. And that really is unpacking what I'm trying to get at the heart of this book, which is like these universal truths, these things that occur in our life in all different places. And jiu-jitsu has been so impactful in my business. You know, it's been so impactful on the golf course. Learning these things one at a time, like you just mentioned. I call it a technical framework. Like when I'm learning a technique, I'm learning this thing. And I might learn it over and over and over and over again for a decade or plus. And I just keep uncovering new things about it. Just like you said, one of the things, the common things in jiu-jitsu and golf is the grip. It's a very unique aspect of golf. It's a very unique aspect of jiu-jitsu, is these gripping sequences and where to put your hands. And so things that I learned as a white belt, I'm still being taught them, and I'm still falling in love with the details over and over and over again. It's just so beautiful, and being able to carry them over to other parts of my life has been so rewarding. And so I just loved having those conversations.
When does the book come out?
So my manuscript is done. I'm editing it, and I'm hopeful that it'll be out by June. But I've been working on it for quite some time, so we'll see.
Awesome. I look forward to it.
I've been going back and forth with my editor, trying to get it into a final, a good position, because I think that this book might reach a niche audience. I mean, jiu-jitsu and business people. There's not a lot of us. Like you and I, our fellow jiu-jitsu, and I'm not talking about the JIU kind, I'm talking about the JEW kind. We're a niche within a niche, we're a tight niche.
Right.
So it's, but I do think that a lot of people will connect with this because of how many people have taken an interest in the podcast and the Instagram account, and that just reach out to me on a consistent basis. There are people like me who they're in business, or they're a doctor, or they do something and they're just obsessed with jiu-jitsu, and it's helped them so much in their life.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's funny, the more people you meet in jiu-jitsu, and you meet people that are good at their given area, whether it's a doctor, a lawyer, a policeman, whatever, there's like a common thread that you start to see over and over, and just things that make people good at what they're doing. And so that's also been a huge benefit, just being around different types of people, and knowing that it's not so different. Like the things that you need to do to be a great businessman or a great podcaster or a great whatever, it's just not that different. And that's why it's actually of no surprise when people that are really successful in their field of work, when they come in and get into jiu-jitsu and they get really good at that, I'm not all that shocked, because I'm like, oh, you understand what you have to do to get good at something. This is just applying that in a different field. So that's been cool to watch too.
Yeah, I love all these local legends and heroes. I'm sure they exist in where you are now, but I'm sure you remember all these guys in the New York area that were so good. And John would talk about it often on a podcast, and you'd hear Gordon talk about it, and they'd say, like, we've got guys that have never competed, that you've never heard of. World champions come into this gym and they embarrass them.
Yeah, it was a deep room, and it was a humbling room, because I'm out there, I'm flying all over the country and sometimes internationally to compete, and then against big names. But I know I'm coming back to New York on Monday afternoon. I could get beat up by some dude that nobody's ever heard of, and so that'll keep you humble. It's funny, like jiu-jitsu doesn't really care how many followers you have on Instagram or what titles you've won or what you're supposed to be on paper. It only cares about, are you doing the correct things to win? And so you could have never competed in your life, but guess what? Like if you do the correct steps when we're training, and I don't, the fact that I compete or the fact that I'm a black belt, that doesn't protect me. So it was a constant reminder of that. And it continues to be a constant reminder, because, at 50-50 now, there's plenty of people who the jiu-jitsu community might not know of or have heard of, but these people are very good. And so it also teaches you to take everybody seriously,
Absolutely. Well, we'll end on that, because I couldn't have said it better myself. I'd love to share a little bit about your business right here, where people could find you. You're Frank Rosenthal 11 on Instagram.
Yep.
Please follow Frank. You'll enjoy his exploits, keeping updated on his business, talking about high level jiu-jitsu. Here's your new academy, Phantom Jiu Jitsu Academy. Where'd you pick the name?
Man, actually, I struggled so much with the name because I'm not like creative like that. When I heard the name, actually, I think my girlfriend and I were in the car and we were just like throwing around names, and I heard the name and it was it clicked and I liked the way it sounded. But then on a deeper level, Ryan had done a podcast, which you guys I think could find on YouTube probably, where he talked about what jiu-jitsu was and what it should be like. And one of the ideas that he talked about and that he constantly helps me to try to emulate and understand is the idea of fighting like a ghost. When people, as he says, when people want to find you, you're hard to find. And when they want to get rid of you, they can't, you show up when they don't want you to. And so that's very much the way that Ryan teaches and the influence that he's had on my jiu-jitsu. So I thought that, combined with how the name kind of like sounded and looked, I thought it was a good fit. And so yeah.
Yeah, I'm grateful for Ryan Hall carrying the jiu-jitsu flag into the UFC. He's been really fun to watch these past couple of years and using some high-level jiu-jitsu techniques to win some really impressive matches. And the one with BJ Penn always sticks out. But I've really, really enjoyed watching Ryan Hall. I have your class schedule pulled up. You have a busy schedule here. You're teaching 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. every night, basically, Monday through Friday. And you've got an 11:30 class Tuesday, Thursday,
and we'll be adding the Monday, Wednesday too. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We'll be adding shortly once we're kind of up and running and going full steam.
Yeah. Well, all these links will be in the description of the podcast where you can find Frank. And if you're in the Virginia area, please visit his academy. And if you need anything, I could be of service to you. If you have any questions about any kind of business, I'm happy to help or point you in the right direction. If you need anything legal, accounting, real estate questions, build outs, contractors, anything, you know where to find me, and don't be a stranger. And the next time I'm in the area, I'll absolutely reach out.
Awesome. Jordan, I really appreciate it. If you come down to Virginia, we gotta get out on the golf course and hack them around.
100%. Thanks a lot, Frank.
Awesome. Talk to you.